So, welcome everyone. I'm really happy today to be here with Jana Osta. And Jana and I have been colleagues for a bit and friends. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit today about her coaching journey and her experience with Health Coaching Essentials. So, if any of you listening in are interested in that, we will touch on that a little bit today. So, Jana, welcome. I'd love if you could just share a little intro on yourself in terms of where you are with your coaching these days, and yeah, share a little intro.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm very excited to be here. So, my name is Jana. Currently, I combine coaching with hypnotherapy, actually. These are two modalities that I love bringing forward to my clients. And I specifically work with entrepreneurs on self-confidence and self-belief while they work with clients and in their business.
It's so amazing to see where you've come over the last number of years and the work that you're doing today. Yeah, it's really wonderful, wonderful to see. So, love to kind of start back at the beginning in terms of how you and I met. And I know you were a fairly new coach, sort of just out of your training at that point. So, can you talk a little bit about what you were feeling, as you were graduating and thinking about starting your coaching practice?
I was so excited to start coaching. And I remember when I graduated from IIN, it was this kind of rush of I can't wait to get my first client or two. And I did. And I freaked out because I did start coaching and I did believe a lot with the kind of education that I received and the information and the transformation that I wanted to create for my clients. But when I actually started doing the work, I realized that it's a whole different universe of working with the client. And clients do come with all kinds of unexpected, stories and emotional struggles and mental struggles. And it goes way beyond, just nutrition and health. And that's where I realized that coaching, I was missing kind of a framework that supports me in holding space and in navigating anything that could come my way, which happens a lot when you start coaching. So I did freak out, to be honest, and I did feel not equipped. I felt after every session with a client that I would question myself, that I would feel drained, that before a client session I could spend hours preparing out of fear of what would come up in the session. So I was just getting drained and I wanted to feel more empowered and understand how I could coach and not just, have more information.
Right. Yeah. And this is such a common thing I hear, from folks who are just coming out of a training. And, that's what a lot of folks think coaching is, right? Well, I'm just going to share all of this information that I have, and I'm going to, help people come up with a list of, action steps and things they can do. And I think for a lot of us, as we start to do that in, those initial first clients, we realize that that's probably not going to really be the thing that our clients need the most, right? It's not going to be the thing that does actually help them transform and reach their goals. So I think it's very common, that you came out of it, and that's, because that's typically what we learn, right? We don't really learn sort of the behavioral change approach to coaching is kind of the other way to go, right? Versus just giving all this advice and recommendations, because I think a lot of folks get into health coaching because that's what they do in their own lives, right? We love to research and study it. A lot of us have gone through our own health and wellness journeys, and so we want to share that information, with other people who are going through a similar thing. But I think as then we start to maybe do that approach in coaching, we realize that there's more to it, and there's more that's going to really help our clients make those long-term changes for sure.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you want to share just in terms of like how, with maybe some of those first clients, like how you were feeling, what you were noticing with your clients?
Yeah, I really think it's this main thing of feeling like not equipped with what might come my way. As in, feeling that no matter how much information and knowledge I have about, again, like food, health, nutrition, everything that we learn on an educational level, I would
Mm.
still feel like things would come up that have nothing to do with information and that I could never be prepared for it. And that would freak me out because always kind of have my fingers crossed under the table is that I hope it's something that I could answer, as in I have the advice for you, but it's never the case. And this is where I started to feel like when people come with, struggles that are not, hey, can you tell me how to do one, two, three? I would feel
Mhm.
like I don't know what to answer. If someone just opens their heart and shares about a personal struggle, I wouldn't know what to answer because I don't have advice on that. I don't have the tips and tools and the to-do lists. I would freak out and I'd really feel like, oh my God, they need to go see a therapist, which is not true. Actually, a coach can
Mhm.
100% help them navigate through the most emotional struggles, which come a lot with anyone who's working on health and nutrition. It's like actually the first thing to work through is the emotional and mental bit. So that's when I realized that I was almost feeling like not good enough. And I almost was feeling like I can't support them unless I would do like, here's your two top things to do to lose weight, let's say, as an example. I felt not equipped, and I would really at some point almost feel like, oh, you need to work with a therapist on this. And I was almost pushing clients away out of that fear, which
Mhm.
was completely not valid, as in I could 100% have helped those clients that I turned away or turned down. I was equipped. I was just not sure how to work through those struggles out of kind of the box of the information giving versus actually helping them navigate their struggles through asking questions, which is exactly what you teach. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think that's how a lot of us feel. I know I felt that like in my first couple of years of coaching as well, that I had to just know more and learn more. And so many of us are just like, well, I need to do more courses, I need to gain more information, and I need to have more knowledge so that we aren't faced with that fear of, what's going to happen when a client shows up and asks me all these questions that I don't have the answers to. And I think it's so common that that actually holds us back from taking on clients or, like you said, wanting to maybe just like pass them on to a therapist or a functional medicine practitioner or someone who could answer those questions. So can you talk a little bit about just the mindset shift, sort of when were going through the course and kind of understood how we could coach differently?
Yes, honestly, the main shift that I recall is moving away from I need to know more and I need to walk into every session with, again, like having read so much and understood a problem and the solution to it, to actually just trusting that I have a framework that can help me navigate every problem. And through certain basic tools, such as, presence or asking the right questions, or again, helping clients navigate what they're experiencing in the moment. So through these tools, I realized that I can be empowered um, irrespective of what comes my way. So it's really moving away from
Mm.
learning more, going in with more information to actually I have everything that I need. And it's just learning how to take that information, but use it as a transformational tool for my clients, irrespective of what they come with. So it's just a shift of how I showed up and trusting in myself and knowing that actually it doesn't matter what they come with. I know exactly how to help them navigate it, no, whether I know the information or not, because it's not about the information. It's how I hold space for them. And that changed everything. That changed really everything on how I show up, how I still show up, and the preparation that took
Mm.
for to
Right.
go into a session. Probably now I take 5 minutes, honestly,
Right.
sometimes to prepare because it doesn't matter. And actually, the biggest transformations happen when I show up in that framework of presence versus overly preparing with my own agenda, which has
Right.
nothing to do with what the client actually needs. So it's such a shift, such a shift.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really, powerful for folks to hear that, because as new coaches, we have so much of that fear that I don't know enough, I don't know how to do this, right? How am I going to answer questions that my clients have? And like you said, it's not about coming with this agenda or, here's a series of questions that I need to ask. It's really understanding the coaching process, right? And really guiding your client through that coaching process versus giving them more information because,
Yeah.
we have the internet. So it's never really lack of
Exactly.
information, right? Our clients mostly know what they need to do.
Yeah, and you know what, to add to that, Michelle, what I remember was really powerful is starting to see coaching as well, the relationship energy and the energy work that is kind of happening when we show up differently as coaches. I really remember that being such a big shift because before working with you, I would come in again from that I'm up there and here to, kind of provide you with the wisdom
Right.
of information
Yeah.
versus dropping down into a more heartfelt level energy and trusting in the exchange that is happening. That changed everything because clients would notice that, oh, this is
Mm.
someone who's intuitive, this is someone who's listening, this is someone who's there's an exchange, they feel more empowered, and that's where all the change started to happen for my clients. So there was a big shift there in
Mm.
seeing coaching as this kind of like heartfelt exchange versus I'm a coach and I'm coming here to, show you. Such
Yeah.
a big shift in how I started showing up for my clients when I kind of shifted that with you. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so different when it's like, I'm up here and you're down here, and I'm going to enlighten you with all of my
Right.
knowledge, right? Versus I'm going to honor that you have the answers inside of you, that you're not broken, you don't need to be fixed, but we're going
Right.
to go through this process together.
Yes.
Like what we learn is that, yes, as the coach, you are holding space for your client to go through a coaching process and you're facilitating that coaching process. But it isn't, just this I'm going to share all this information and give you a list of 20, action items to add to your health and wellness to-do list when you go, back in your life.
Yeah.
So it really is different when we can show up from that place. I think about it. It's a neutral coaching relationship, right? We both come in as equals.
Mhm.
And we both have things, both coach and client, to bring to the coaching relationship. And, you brought up that word of empowerment. And that I think is where the empowerment comes from, where what we're looking at from our coach perspective now is I believe in you, client. I believe that you have the information, the skills, the values, the tools, right, to know what's right for you. Who am I to figure out what's going to be right for you at the end of the day? So when
Right.
we can shift that mindset and really trust in the client, trust in ourselves as coaches, right, and trust in the process, then it just is a totally different relationship.
Yeah.
For sure. And I love that you brought up the part of, because I hear this all the time. And in my first 2 years, I did so much of this. I mean, spending like hours on end preparing for a coaching session. And then you'd have the session and you'd take notes the whole way through.
Yeah.
And then you'd send like this big giant recap email.
Oh, yes.
I would have like everything transcribed, then I would have links and documents and all these things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, clients didn't even read all of that. And I was spending all this time, I was completely burnt out, by
Yeah.
doing all of
Yeah.
that. And now,
Mhm.
like you said, I mean, I can show up to any coaching,
Yeah.
session
Yeah.
with like
Totally.
5 minutes because the process
Mhm.
works, as you said as well, for any coaching topic, no matter what our clients are going to bring to us. We
Yeah.
just know the process and we're going to show up and guide them through it. So it saves so much time and energy as
Yeah.
well as sort of that mental fatigue as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So, can you think back to some of those first clients that maybe you started to, shift, into this mindset and do coaching a little bit differently? Can you talk a little bit about how that felt for you and maybe anything you noticed with your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, so first of all, there was a lot more trust in the process versus again showing up from a state of fear and worry and over preparation to a point where I have to force, like, no, this is what I prepared, to kind of force an agenda. So shifting away from that into full, like I was sharing, presence, intuition, and deep listening and connection to the client. And eventually, I really started to see that it was that, connection that was creating the transformation
Mm.
on some level. And the other thing that really I started to notice is that different clients need different things. And when in the past, before doing the course with you, I would just walk in with, if they have a weight loss issue, this is what we're gonna do. But different clients are ready for different things. And actually going through the coaching from a space of presence and intuition and deep listening and exchange, I just started to realize how I could shift what was being offered, even if it is information giving, trusting that that's what they need right now. So it was just a very deep trust kind of process, ease, more calmness in my side, which the clients see and feel, and just definitely bigger transformations, just because it was what they needed and not what I thought they needed. So just a whole different exchange was happening there.
Yeah, and so I'm hearing a little bit about like in by using this new process, maybe more on the behavioral change coaching side of things, just really helping your client know what they need, right? So
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
it's more intrinsic, so of course we use that term in coaching, the intrinsic motivation, but it's helping your client figuring out what's right for them and how are they motivated to make the change,
Right.
versus, oh, well, here's what I think you need, right? Because a lot of new coaches, that's exactly, we get into that expert mindset, right?
Yes.
We're like, oh, I can assess you and I can see exactly what your problem is. You just need to eat these greens and do more meditation and, all these things, and then you'll be great. But
Yeah.
from this perspective, we're really deeply listening to the client and really helping them understand the reasons why they need to make a change, the benefits that'll happen if they do make the change, and to really connect into their motivation. Because I say often that if our client isn't motivated and they don't understand why they're going to maybe, do these action steps or set these goals, they're probably not going to be successful, right, at making the change.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's really honestly, after I started working with you, I don't remember the last time I gave advice. Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
just don't give advice because, again, I could tell someone to do yoga because I love yoga, but they'll never do yoga because they love Pilates. And it
Really.
took me a lot of time to accept, kind of this deep trust that they know. But after, kind of releasing that pressure off my shoulders, it really started to become lighter to coach. It's just easier to coach, and I could coach more clients. I could do it faster in a calmer way and more effective way. So it's the right way.
Yeah, I love that, just hearing that kind of stated out loud. When I didn't have to give advice anymore, it became
Okay.
more fun and enjoyable. I mean, because that's a lot of pressure, right?
Exactly.
On a new coach to have all this information, to give advice, to try to fix and solve someone's health and wellness challenges. I mean, that's not what we're trained to do, right? I mean, a lot of the time, I think a lot new coaches, we're trying to show up as doctors, right? We're trying to
Yeah.
diagnose and prescribe
No,
and like
no.
give treatment plans. And that's not what we were trained to do. And
Yeah,
so no wonder we feel like frauds and imposters all the time, right? We have all these doubts and fears because we're not trained to do that.
exactly.
So when we can get back to the real coaching skills, like you said, and just let go of this need to give advice and to have to know it all. I mean, I as well found that was just like so freeing. It was this huge
Yeah,
weight lifted
yeah,
off my
exactly.
shoulders when I was like, I don't need to carry that pressure anymore. I
No,
can show up with this coaching process and with these coaching skills and tools and questions and active listening and all our core skills that we have as coaches. And that's really what my client needs, right? So it's a much more empowering process, as you said, for both us as coaches and our clients.
yeah.
Sure.
And I must add, because I also remember something very nice that you also taught us in that course is if I am to give advice, how to do it. So it doesn't feel like, no, I'm not going to say my opinion, but you also showed a beautiful kind of framework on there are moments where, as a coach, you might want to give, certain tips and tools, but how to do it in a way that is also receptive or acceptable from the client's side, and it doesn't feel pushy where they would say like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. So how to do that in a way that is heartfelt and open. So I also love that you also gave that kind of like masculine approach in a way when needed. So I really
Right.
felt like if I wanted to, there's a way, and it's not necessarily the way of I'm gonna send you a document versus how to do it in a way that is actually accessible for the client. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because that is key. I hear that from a lot of new folks. Well, does it mean that I never give advice or I never share,
Right.
a tip or some information that I have? Absolutely not, right? In this style of coaching, we can absolutely do that. It's not the majority of our coaching process, but if our client is really stuck and they don't have, a resource, a tool, if they don't have information that we have, absolutely we can share that, right? And like you said, there's a proper way to do it. There's a way to do it that feels empowering for the client and it's not just being told, right, what to do. So there's a really beautiful coaching way, to show up and do that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that one up too. So anything else, in terms of key things that maybe you learned through the course that were really beneficial for you?
Yeah, oh my God, there's many. So I'll try to, kind of bring up the ones that were really kind of transformative. I would say a key one as well is providing a structure for the session.
Mm,
Because I will also remember that I would walk into a session and, every time I would be like, how do I start? And then how do I end? Because sometimes it's like they're still talking, but it's over 1 hour. And so all of those things where I would feel so lost and confused, I remember, and to this day, I still use your structure that you really take us through a very clear structure from the opening to the middle of the session to if there is a problem, how to navigate it, if they are talking a lot, how to make it easy to kind of come back to the root of the problem, how to come to the solution at the end, how to close the session, how to create next steps for the client. So you really created such a beautiful and easy in-session process that again, now I know it by heart. Like I don't need to look at a document to follow it. But also I know that even if it's a 10-minute coaching or a 2-hour coaching, I know that I need to start with 1, 2, 3 and then jump into, the core of it. And then this is how I close. And it's just so empowering because, again, it's an easy framework to follow and not feel stuck on what's coming next and how am I going to start. So that was so beautiful and easy. And on its own, it's empowering. But
mm,
also adding, you also gave structures on how to prepare for a session and then after the session, what to do, what not to do. And again, all of those things in the past would take so much energy and time. And you provide a lot of kind of whether it's documents to follow that are easy to help you navigate in those sessions, but also the kind of questions you could ask for each section. And I remember that being so powerful,
mm,
learning how to ask the questions for each different section and how to write notes and all
mm,
of those things. Like there's so many nuggets, but honestly, like I've used those for years. Like I still do, and it's really so it's endless. It's what's the
mm,
word? Like not endless, sorry, timeless, as in
mm.
I could use it for another 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it really is, sort of a best practice, evidence-based.
Okay.
This is the structure that works, right? And it works, like we mentioned before, for any topic, no matter what our client brings, it's going to work. We don't need to have their entire life story or backstory, to really just show up and use this. And I love that you say that, like now it's just what you do, right? You don't need a script anymore. You don't need bullet points, right? And it just becomes default mode. It's how we show up as a coach, because now we have this process and method.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that for me, I know that's what I was looking for in those first couple of years when I was coaching and didn't know. You'd show up and it would just be like chit chatting the whole way through the conversation and it would go on forever and there was no structure, no flow. And this just really helps you bring all of that together so you actually get to the coaching part, right? Because I think for so many new coaches, a client shows up and they just, share all these problems that they have. And then we're supposed to figure out what we do with all of that, right?
Right.
But
Right.
when we have this process to follow, it just gives us that sense of ease. And like you said, you don't really have to prepare. You don't need to send a bunch of recaps after.
No.
Just show up and you do the work in the session, right? That's where you're bringing your skills and your value is there in the session, right? What the client does back in their own life once they have that action plan and their goals, And of course, you're going to help them with those accountability measures, but what they do is really up to them, and you show up and do the work in session. So I'm so glad to hear that you're still,
Yeah. Yeah.
using it and following it, and that it's just become, the template for how you show up and coach.
Yeah. And what's funny is that honestly, I also use this template like in my personal life a lot. So a lot of times where I feel like, okay, I'm navigating a problem here, I really kind of bring a lot of those approaches in my personal connections where it's needed, you
Yeah,
know. So it's really a great way to like a life tool in a way on how to support someone who's struggling right in front of you. So
right. Yeah,
yeah,
whether
exactly.
it's with a paid client or a friend
Yeah,
or a colleague or somebody
exactly.
needs, you
Exactly.
know, I always say to new coaches, you don't have to wait for like an actual, like a coaching demo or a buddy
Yeah.
session or a practice session to practice these skills. I mean, these are
Right.
just really great life communication skills. Asking
Yeah.
other questions, reflecting back what we're hearing, not being the expert, and really the person that you're talking to, helping them come up with their own answers, right? It's
Okay.
really empowering stuff. So we can start using these
Yeah.
skills absolutely in our everyday life.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and talking about demos, like another thing
Mm,
like I really loved in your program is the practice because we
mm,
don't get a chance to do that, in most, courses that we do. That is, I would say, one quite overlooked part, but so important because that's the work that we're doing actually. And I love that in your program we got a chance to practice next to you. So we get to get real feedback from a professional, whereas in many courses you practice kind of with other colleagues and then other peers on the same level, and you don't get someone to watch you and give you live feedback.
yeah.
And that was so important that I knew I was being seen by someone who can tell me, Jana, like you could do this better or practice this way. So, like actual feedback, but also we got to practice together with other coaches
Mm,
privately. And that was really nice because you get the community kind of sense and you get a chance to have friends and grow together. And there's many people from that course who I'm still in touch with, believe it or not. And we've done collaborations together. We've done Instagram lives together. So it really creates a connection and it is a community, coaches together. We're here to kind of support each
mhm.
other because it can get lonely. So I really loved the community aspect, the feedback that you give us, and the many practice opportunities that we got along the way. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. And it's so cool to hear that you're still in touch. And I hear
Yeah.
that from so many folks that, their buddies and people that they're practicing with, they continue on and really support each other. Because, like you said, it can be really lonely,
Yeah.
in this business, doing this work like from home and by ourselves, right? And we feel that we're sort of all alone. So it's great to have somebody to continue kind of supporting one another through that with. And yeah, I mean, the reason why I created this course in the beginning was the practice element. I mean, after working with like hundreds of IIN students and seeing them not getting the practice, I didn't personally have practice when I went through my training. And so I just felt like that's the missing piece because that is where the magic happens. I think we can study coaching all we want, we can learn the techniques and we can read about it. But it's when we actually show up in that coaching role and say the words out loud and try to do the work that we realize either, oh, it's not as good as it could be, or, it's probably better than maybe I think it is. But that's really, I don't think there's anything that can replace the, practical practice
Yeah.
of coaching, right? We have to do it in order for it to become like it has for you, sort of this default mode over time. It's just, this is what I do. This is now how I show up.
Yeah.
But you have to practice it. And in the course, you're practicing every week for the 9 weeks. You're getting live feedback every time. And for me, that was so valuable back in the day when I was going through my training and got feedback from my mentor. I mean, that transformed my coaching.
Yeah.
I was doing things, I was making mistakes, I had all these little blind spots, and I would have never seen those if he hadn't, pointed those out to me. Just little things, language, I would laugh all the time because I was nervous. And there were just all of these little things that I did that was so helpful to like see it and have someone point that out. Now, there was always the positive as well, right? And, you know, again, I think new coaches, we think we're doing much worse than we usually are. So it's great great to hear the positives, to learn, what are my natural skills and tendencies as a coach, right? What am I just naturally showing up and doing? And then what are those areas that I can work on? And that's really the intention behind, that practice element of the course. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. So is there anything else that you can think back, like in terms of like takeaways or insights from your time in the course?
I think I shared, like the gist of a lot of like the
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
things. A lot of the amazing I could share even more, but really at the essence of it is
Mm,
trusting in yourself as a coach, trusting in myself as a coach. That
mm,
was a big one, but also having the framework to show up to any session, no matter what, feeling prepared and knowing that I'm making a difference irrespective of, how much I know or don't know, that the difference is happening because of the coaching kind of
mm,
framework. So that was very empowering. I just feel like I just got so empowered as a coach. And I must admit, like, that launched my business, as in, that's when
mm.
I started to feel like I started to get more clients. And because I was more confident, so I would
Right.
get more clients and they would recommend me and so on, just because I wasn't like showing up with like freaking out. And clients notice when you are not in your core, when you're not in your center.
Mm,
So it just really switched around my business, and I'm forever grateful. And I
mm,
also want to say, maybe you don't realize that, but it's because of your cause that I also opened up to wanting to learn about hypnotherapy. So why I'm sharing that is because
mm,
it also allowed me to discover myself as a coach, as in like what do I like and what do I don't like, and what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy.
mm.
And that's I started to explore who am I as a coach,
Yeah.
and through that exploration, I started to realize that I want to do something a bit more. That was my own journey, but irrespective, I feel like your course also opens you up to really tuning into the kind of coach that you want to
Mm,
be, and not
absolutely.
just feel like you need to follow, like, how everyone is doing
Right.
things, but actually to open yourself to who you are as a coach. And
Yeah.
I really feel like on,
Mm,
on a on a subtle level, it's your course that actually made me feel like I want to do more the emotional bit, and I
sure.
went down, I switched things around.
Yeah.
But I think that was such an important part of it,
Mhm.
and on a very subtle level, but it's happening because you're discovering yourself as a coach. So
Yeah.
something interesting there, that you don't need to follow a template of how a coach should look like and act like, but you find your voice as a coach.
Right.
And your
Right.
course really helped me with that. And maybe you didn't even know that.
But I mean, kind of what I'm hearing is it's because of the confidence, right? And I think that's such a key thing with new coaches. When we don't have the confidence, we kind of show up with this needy lack energy. I mean, you get on a discovery call with somebody and you're just like, please, please, work with me. And it's almost like you're begging people to work with you. It's that negative energy that you're leading with, this fear and this doubt, and so when you realize, okay, I know how to coach. And, I would say like 99.9% of the people who come out of my course at the end, they're like, I have no problem coaching whoever's going to come. So you now have that confidence to put yourself out in the world as a coach, right? To get those first clients. And as you said, over the years, building the confidence to go, what kind of coach do I really want to be, right? How do I want to bring this into the world? Who are the people that I want to support? What other modalities do I want to bring into this and study and learn and grow as a coach, right? So I think it's from that foundation of confidence, because you know how to coach, you know the skills, and you believe in it, that can really be that, foundation from which you continue to grow from and evolve, right? As a human being and as a coach. I mean, we're all on, a learning journey, but with that initial bit of confidence is kind of the launching pad to enable you to get there, which is fantastic. It's so amazing to
Exactly.
hear
Yeah,
that.
thank
Oh, thank
you.
you so much, Jana.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't recommend this enough. Like this course is one of the courses that I'll remember for the rest of my life because it's so foundational. I've done like I can't even count the number of courses that I've done in terms of educational, but this course remains kind of the thread that weaves into all the courses that I've done. As in, whether I'm doing somatic therapy or hypnotherapy, whatever I'm doing, the framework that you teach comes still is used in every form of therapy that I'm giving because it's so foundational. And I really know that I will use it for the rest of my life because it's such a strong foundation that you can do anything from it. And there's no course out there that has given me what you provide, like no course. And I swear I've practiced with like top schools in the world, you know, and there's no course that has ever given me the confidence to be a coach or therapist or healer that is very confident in herself no matter what. Like, that's not given anywhere. So I couldn't recommend your course enough. Like, I wish if anyone has any questions, just reach out to me. Like, honestly, this is the course to go to. I love also how professional you are, how supportive you are. Like, I remember, I think I would used to bombard you sometimes with questions, and I would receive answers to every single question. The amount of resources and tools that you give, the documents, everything you've given, I still have them all saved, and I still use a lot of them. Like, it's just insane the value that you give. It's really, really so valuable. Thank you for all that you do, Michelle, really.
Oh, well, thank you, Jana, for taking the time to share your experience. And
Very
I'm,
welcome.
just, feel so honored that I was a small part of the journey and, where you've gotten to because you've done a lot of hard work and just grown and evolved. And it's just amazing to see the incredible work that you're doing in the world. So
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time today.
You're
And I look forward to, yeah, just continuing to watch, all the amazing things that you do. So
Thank
thanks
you.
again.
You're very
All
welcome.
righty. All right. Take good care, Jana. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Righty. Bye.
Bye bye.